The night I finally added it all up, I was sitting on the floor of my apartment in Provenza with a paper notebook, because I didn't trust myself to look at a number on a screen and feel nothing. 7 months. I wrote down every emergency, every just this once, every phone bill, every vet bill, every cousin's surgery bill I'd quietly covered because at the time each one seemed like nothing. Then I added it up. I'm not going to tell you the exact figure because the figure isn't the point. The point is that when I saw it, my first thought wasn't, "She took that from me." My first thought was quieter and worse. It was, I handed all of that over, one small yes at a time, and I never once made her ask twice. I'm Luke. I've spent the last 7 years moving between cities in Latin America, and Medellín is the one I keep coming back to. 3 separate stays now, 18 months on the ground when you add them together. This is about the most expensive relationship I've ever been in, a woman I'll call Catalina, and the slow, almost invisible way I ended up funding a life I thought I was sharing. But it's about something bigger than her, and I need to be honest with you up front about what that is. This is not a video about a scheme that women in this city run on foreign men. That framing is lazy, and worse, it would have gotten me burned again, because it points your eyes in exactly the wrong direction. This is a video about what a lonely man with a foreign income does to himself when nobody's watching. The trap had my name on it long before I ever met her. If you're thinking about coming down here, or you just want the honest version of what this actually costs, and I don't only mean money, subscribe. I make one of these every few weeks, and this is the stuff I wish somebody had said to me before I got on the plane. Let me take you back to how it started, because it didn't start with a red flag. It started with the best few months I'd had in years. This was my second real run in Medellín. I'd done a couple of months here already, then bounced down to Buenos Aires for a while, and I came back because Medellín does something that most American cities never manage. It makes your life feel easy. You land, and within a week you've got a favorite cafe, a guy at the corner store who knows your order, a gym, a rhythm. I got a 1-bedroom in Provenza, one of those buildings with a rooftop pool nobody actually swims in, for $1,400 a month. That's real money to a local and pocket change to a guy billing US tech clients 15 hours a week. Sit with that gap for a second, because that gap is the whole story. Everything I'm about to tell you grows out of it. Here's the first thing I want you to actually take with you, and it's not about Catalina at all. When a place makes your life this easy, this fast, it lowers your guard in a way you don't feel happening. Back home, life has friction. You earn your comfort slowly, and that friction keeps you sharp. You notice when something's off because you've had to work for everything that isn't. Down here, on a foreign income, the friction disappears, and a man with no friction and a full wallet stops paying attention to the exact thing he most needs to watch, which is himself. My guard wasn't lowered because Medellín is dangerous. It was lowered because Medellín felt safe, and I mistook feeling good for being wise. Those are not the same thing. And the distance between them cost me 7 months and a number I still won't say out loud. I met Catalina at a cafe in Manila, that little pocket of streets just off Provenza, where everybody with a laptop pretends to work. She was there with a friend. We talked for maybe 20 minutes, she left, and I spent the rest of the afternoon replaying it instead of doing the work I was supposed to be doing. I want to be fair to her here, and to the version of me that fell for her, because I don't think she sat down that day plotting anything. That's the too easy story. And I've watched 100 guys in bars tell it about their own exes, and it lets every single one of them off the hook. What actually happened is more human and more useful to understand. 2 people met. One of them was warm and struggling in ways I didn't see yet. The other one, me, was lonely in a way I hadn't admitted. 3 years into a life on the road that looked free from the outside, and sometimes felt like nobody on earth knew where I was. I didn't fall for a con, I fell for the chance to be somebody's answer. That's a much harder thing to protect yourself against, because it doesn't feel like a weakness. It feels like love. The first 2 months were genuinely good. I'm not going to pretend they weren't, because if I tell you it was all a gray manipulation from day one, you won't believe me, and you shouldn't, because it wasn't true. We'd get breakfast at a place in Laureles she liked, drive out to Envigado on Sundays, spend whole afternoons doing nothing. She was funny. She noticed things about me. And I did what I always did in those years, which was reach for my wallet, constantly, reflexively, because it was the easiest way I knew to be generous, and because, this is the part that took me years to see, Every time I paid, I felt needed. That was the drug, not her. The feeling of being the one who provides. Write that down if you're the kind of guy who's ever confused being useful with being loved, because that confusion is going to be the most expensive thing you carry across the border. Now let me show you how it actually escalated. Because the mechanism matters more than the story. And if you understand the mechanism, you can spot it anywhere. Medellín, Denver, a dating app in your own zip code. It never started with a big ask. That's what people get wrong when they imagine this. Nobody sane opens with "pay for my family's medical crisis." It starts microscopic. Month 2, her phone got cut off, and she mentioned it the way you'd mention the weather, not asking, just narrating her day. And I said, "I'll get it. It's nothing." And it was nothing. $40. But something happened in that moment that I didn't clock. I established myself. I became, in one small frictionless gesture, the person who handles it. And once you're the person who handles it, every future problem quietly routes to you, and declining any single one of them starts to feel like you're withdrawing something you already promised. The second ask was bigger, and it came wrapped in family, which is the wrapping that works on men like me every time, because it doesn't feel like she's asking for herself. It feels noble to say yes. Her mother needed a procedure, there was a gap the family couldn't cover, and here's the craft of it, though I don't think it was conscious craft, she didn't ask me. She told me about it, crying, and then said she'd figure it out. She always did. I shouldn't worry about it, which of course made me insist. I turned my own wallet into my idea. That's the thing I need you to really hear. By the time real money moved, I had convinced myself it was my decision, my generosity, my role. She never had to ask twice because I'd learned to volunteer. And then it just became the shape of things. There was always a next one. And this is the single cleanest test I can give you. The one thing from this entire 7 months I'd tattoo on a younger man's arm. A real emergency resolves. A manufactured dependency never does. When someone in your life hits a genuine crisis, you help, and then it's over. The surgery happens, the debt clears, life stabilizes, and you go back to normal. What I had instead was a faucet that never turned off. One emergency dissolved directly into the next, month after month, and I never noticed the pattern because I was only ever looking at each drop. That's how you fund a life while believing you're handling a rough patch. You keep your eyes on the individual yes and never step back far enough to see the faucet. Here's the moment it broke open for me. It was month 5 or 6, and I was tired, and I said no. Small thing. Some expense, a few $100s, and I just didn't have the energy to reach for the card, and I said, "Not this week, I can't right now." And the temperature in the room dropped 40 degrees. Not a fight. Colder than a fight. A withdrawal. Distance. Days of it. And when I finally caved and covered the thing, the warmth came back like a light switch, and I remember standing on my balcony in Provenza, looking out at the mountains thinking, the affection in this relationship tracks my spending. It rises when I pay and falls when I don't. I could graph it. And even then, this is how deep the hook goes. My first instinct wasn't to leave. It was to fix it by spending more. Because leaving meant admitting the whole thing had a price tag, and the man I'd been for those months couldn't survive that admission. That's the trap. It was never a story she told me. The trap was the version of me that would rather keep paying than face what the paying meant. I want to know, how many of you watching this are seriously thinking about coming down here and building some version of this life? Drop the city you're looking at in the comments. Medellín, CDMX, Buenos Aires, wherever. I read all of them, and honestly the cities you're picking tell me a lot about what you're really after. So let me get into what men actually get wrong about this, because I got all of it wrong first, and I watch new guys get it wrong every single week from a bar stool in El Poblado. The biggest mistake, the one underneath all the others, is believing that generosity is love. It isn't. Generosity is a beautiful thing when it flows from a full cup, when you give because you have plenty, and it makes you happy to share it, and you'd give the same, whether or not it bought you anything. That's real. But that is not what I was doing, and it's not what most lonely men on foreign incomes are doing, and we lie to ourselves about it constantly. I wasn't giving from a full cup. I was giving from an empty one, trying to fill it. I was using money to purchase the sensation of being chosen, because being chosen for who I actually was felt too uncertain to rely on. And here's the brutal part. When you pay your way into affection, you never find out if you were wanted. You've contaminated the experiment. You will never know, because you made yourself impossible to refuse. The second mistake is not being honest about the asymmetry. And this is where I have to say something that some of you won't want to hear, but it's the most important practical thing in this whole video. If you're coming here on a US remote income, you are not on a level playing field, and pretending you are is a fantasy that will get you hurt and, frankly, will let you hurt other people too. You might be making 5, 8, 10 times the local median. That is an enormous gravitational field, and it bends everything around you whether you want it to or not. It doesn't mean the woman across the table is a schemer. That's the lie men tell to feel superior while they keep swiping the card. What it means is that money can never be your evidence of anything. It's too heavy. It distorts the reading. A guy back home who picks up every check is showing off. A guy down here who picks up every check might be swinging around a financial weight so large that he's warped the entire dynamic and then wonders why it feels transactional. It feels transactional because he made it a transaction. The asymmetry is real. It's nobody's fault. And the entire job, your entire job, is to be honest enough about it that you never mistake your wallet for your character. I watch guys get this exactly backwards. I was at a rooftop place in Provenza a while back, and there's this American, maybe 50, and he's holding court, buying rounds for a whole table of people he met 2 hours ago, and you can see it on his face. He thinks the warmth around him is about him. It's not that anyone at that table is bad, it's that he's confusing being the source of the fun with being the point of it, and the second the money stops, he's going to find out which one it was, and he's going to blame everyone but himself. That was me at 32. I just had a smaller audience. And here's the part where I have to talk about my own worst version of it, because it's easy to tell this story like I was a victim, and I was not. Somewhere in month 4 I stopped having my own life. I let the relationship swallow it. I wasn't seeing my own friends, I let my work slide. I organized my days around her needs and her family's crises, and I told myself that was devotion. It wasn't devotion. It was that being needed had become the only thing giving my days shape. And a man in that state is not a partner, he's a resource with feelings. I made myself into exactly the thing I later resented being treated as. You don't get to abandon your own life, plug the hole with someone else's problems, and then act shocked when the relationship organizes itself around your usefulness. I built that. I built it with my own 2 hands and my own credit card. So let me tell you what it actually takes, because I still love this city. I still come back. And I've had good, real, healthy connections here since. Which is the whole reason I can promise you this next part works. The first thing it takes is knowing your own psychology before you land, because Medellín didn't create my weakness, it just made it cheap to indulge. If you're coming out of a divorce, a breakup, a stretch of feeling invisible, and a lot of you are, I was too, you have got to know that about yourself walking in the door. Because the specific danger for a man carrying that particular wound and a foreign income isn't that someone will trick him, it's that he'll trick himself, gladly, because being needed is the fastest painkiller he's ever found, and this is the one place on earth where he can afford an unlimited supply. Self-knowledge isn't soft. It's the single most protective thing you can pack. Second, and this one's a hard rule I live by now, no money moves in the first several months, none. And I don't mean because everyone's out to get you, I mean because in the first few months you cannot tell infatuation from judgment. Your brain is chemically incapable of it. You are not qualified to make financial decisions about a person you're that lit up about, so you take the decision off the table entirely until you can actually see straight. If a connection can't survive you being a normal, generous on dates guy without becoming somebody's financial infrastructure, then it was never a connection, and you just saved yourself 7 months. This costs you nothing. The right person won't even notice the rule exists, because the right person isn't oriented toward your wallet in the first place. Third, watch the direction of the flow. And I don't mean money should be even, because given the asymmetry it often can't be. I mean effort, care, showing up. In a real thing, both people are pouring in. Maybe she can't match you dollar for dollar, but she's matching you in the currencies she has, in attention and presence and the small daily labor of actually caring about you. What I had with Catalina, when I finally looked honestly, was flow in one direction only. Money out, problems in, and almost nothing coming back that wasn't warmth I'd essentially purchased that week. Reciprocity doesn't have to be symmetrical to be real, but it has to exist, and it has to run both ways. And if the only thing flowing toward you is need, you don't have a relationship, you have a subscription. Fourth, and this is the one that would have saved me, so I'm giving it to you straight. Pay attention to what happens when you say no. Not as a trick to test her, as information about what the thing actually is. I'm not telling you to manufacture fake refusals to run some game on a person you care about. That's its own kind of poison, and you'll deserve what it does to you. I'm telling you that life will hand you natural no's. The week you're tapped out, the ask that's a bridge too far. And when it does, watch closely, because the relationship's response to your no tells you its true nature faster than a year of good times. If your no is met with understanding, you've got something. If your no drops the temperature and your yes brings the sun back out, you already have your answer. And no amount of wanting it to be different will change what you just watched happen. And the last thing, the one underneath all the tactics, separate your generosity from your need to be needed, permanently, and rebuild it from a full cup. These days, I do still pick up checks. I still help people I love, sometimes generously. But it comes from a completely different place. It comes from plenty, and it comes with no invoice attached, no secret hope that it's buying me something. I give because I want to, and because I can, and then I let go of it entirely, and if the affection in my life ever started tracking my spending again, I'd know within a week and I'd be gone. The man who does well here isn't the one who's stingy and suspicious, scowling at every woman like she's a threat. That guy's miserable, and he's also wrong about people. The man who does well is the one who's done the work to know why he gives, so that his money is just money, and never a substitute for being someone worth choosing on his own. So here's where all of it lands. Catalina wasn't a villain and I wasn't a mark, and if you take nothing else from 25 minutes of me talking, take this. The most dangerous thing I brought into this country was never on any list of scams to watch out for. It was loneliness with a credit card, and a quiet, unexamined hunger to be somebody's answer. This city didn't do that to me. It just made it affordable, and I did the rest to myself, one frictionless yes at a time, until I was sitting on my floor in Provenza with a notebook, staring at a number I'd built with my own hands. The trap was never her. The trap was the version of me that would rather keep paying than find out whether I was loved. Fix that man before you get on the plane, and this city will give you some of the best years of your life. Don't, and it'll hand you the exact bill you were always going to run up somewhere. It just won't ask you twice, because you'll never make it. If you got something out of this, hit subscribe. I'm in a different city every few months, and the next ones get into the stuff nobody says out loud about living down here. The money, the loneliness, the parts that don't fit on a highlight reel. See you on the road.